Good afternoon, and welcome to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Also, just to mention, first of all, we have on our website all the new updated how we're going to be doing the high holidays. So you can check that out on our website. That's jewishli.com/HH5781. That's High Holidays 5781. As well as we continue these classes, we're going to be starting also to discuss a little bit about the high holidays, but as well as you can send in your comments and questions to which topics you would like to cover, which questions you would like answered as we're continuing to different questions and talking about the reasons of those answers. So if there's any questions that you may have, feel free to send them in and we will be able to cover them in the future classes. Today we're going to talk about something which we mentioned in last week's Torah reading. Moses' 2 weeks ago's Torah reading, where Moses tells the Jewish people that there's one thing that God requests of them, which is, and now, to quote Moses in the book of Deuteronomy, and now Israel, what does God require of you but to fear God, to walk in all his ways, to love him and to serve God with all your heart and with all your soul. Moses tells the Jewish people, the only thing that God is asking of you is to fear him. And the Talmud asks, it says, the only thing is fear an easy thing to do? It's very complicated to fear. Which today, some modern psychologists may argue, why fear? Why fear God? Isn't it love just good enough? Why do you have to fear God? Why do you have to be afraid that all of a sudden some mighty hand come and will smite you and knock you out of this world? Why do you have to fear God? Just love God. Think positive. People often repeat a quote from President Roosevelt that he said in his inaugural address, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So is fear a good thing or not a good thing? Should we be fearing God? Is fear a negative or not? So for starters, let's put the case to rest by saying that fear is not always a negative. Fear is important in many cases. For example, if you're afraid to put your hand on a burning stove out of being fearful that it might get burnt, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, so you won't burn yourself. Somebody who has no fear and jumps and does things that are dangerous and puts their lives in danger out of no fear, you may say they're a little crazy. So fear is a good thing at times. If you don't say things because you don't want to, you're afraid of offending somebody, that's a good thing. So fear at times is a good thing. But then there's fear that's paralyzing, that you don't take on new commitments, you don't speak up to your boss, or whatever it may be, because of different things in life, then that's paralyzing. So fear has in it a positive connotation and a negative connotation. How do you know if it's good or bad? If the fear has a positive outcome, then you can generally classify that fear as a good thing. And if the fear has a negative outcome, which it becomes, for example, paralyzes the person and doesn't allow them to go forward, then you can say it's a negative thing. But when we talk about our fear of God, what does it mean? For all practical purposes, when we talk about fear of God, we're assuming that this is a very positive fear, one that helps a person, not, God forbid, hinders our relationship with God. Or else Moses wouldn't ask the Jewish people to do something that hinders their relationship. He is telling them something that will enhance their relationship with God. And therefore he says, love is not good enough, but God is asking you to fear him. Why isn't love good enough? So what kind of fear are we talking about? Is this the fear of a consequence? Are we afraid that God might punish us if we do something wrong? What are we afraid of? What does exactly this fear of God entail? And some want to explain and say, yes, the fear is, it's a fear of punishment. Now, what does this mean? Why is there a punishment? In Judaism, we know one of the 13 principles of faith that Maimonides tells us is that God punishes and rewards those who follow his ways. So reward and punishment is a basic tenet of Judaism. Reward and punishment can take place in this world and also can take place in the afterworld. Reward and punishment is a direct consequence of our actions. It's not a punishment per se, but it is a consequence, and that's why we mention it many times when we talk about it in the book of Deuteronomy, when we read about the consequences before the Rosh Hashanah, and as well we read it before Shavuos, where Torah enumerates the different consequences or punishments that happens to the Jewish people. We talk about them as a consequence. You behave in a certain manner. For example, if you believe you're independent of God, so then God says you're independent, have it your way, and then things don't necessarily turn out the way we think. So what does it mean, the obligation to fear God? Is the obligation part of fearing God of punishment? On one hand, we can say fear of punishment is promoted in Judaism and in Jewish works. And the question is it the right thing to be afraid of God? That means we're not going to murder, we're not going to steal, we're not going to cheat, we're not going to transgress any other transgressions, whatever it may be. And my motive is because I'm fearful that God may punish me because of it. Is that the reason why we do it? Well, the fifth Chabad Rebbe explains that though the fear of punishment in itself is an idea, will help a person and refrain from doing any negative and will cause them to do positive in their relationship with God. However, this is only a selfish concern, and it is not the complete fear, but at the same time not completely bad. Meaning, when you say there's fear of punishment, the problem with that is that this is not fear of God. You are more concerned about what's going to happen to you than about you being fearful of God. You're afraid of God because you're worried about what's going to happen to you and how you're going to end up, that you're going to be smitten by who knows what and when. So therefore, you don't want to do anything which may offend God. So who are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of God or are you afraid of you? It's more of a selfish attitude. The only positive side or flip side of this is at the end of the day, you're doing the right thing and you're not doing the wrong thing. And at the end of the day, you're making sure that you stay on the straight and narrow. But at the moment that you all of a sudden say, you know what? Big deal. I'm not afraid of my life. I'm not afraid of this. I'm not afraid of that. And you don't care about your own selfishness, you'll also terminate that relationship with God because it's all about being worried about punishment. So going back to the question, is fear of punishment necessary? Yes, it's necessary for a person who is on that immature level, so to speak. For the benefit of not sinning, it is necessary. However, if you want to have a benefit of creating and ultimately making a relationship with God, that's not going to happen. Fear of punishment is more of a prophylactic benefit because of the self-evident repercussions that may come from doing something wrong. So therefore you say, I don't want to do anything wrong because I'm afraid of what might happen to me. So then what does it work? How do I go about? Why do I need the next step of fear? What is the next step of fear? So let's move this discussion for a moment to relationships. Any type of relationship, but even to a relationship of marriage. Is love enough to sustain a relationship? And the answer for that is it depends how you define love. You know, unfortunately, in the American lexicon, people love ice cream, they love their spouse, they love their children, and they love a good piece of steak. And it's all the same word. How do you define love? Generally, people define love in what makes them happy. So they love the piece of steak because they enjoy it and it gives them pleasure by eating it, or the ice cream and whatever it is. When they translate that in a relationship, one of the biggest problems that people have then is that relationship foils because they look into relationship for what benefit they're going to gain. Their definition of love is, what will I gain from this relationship? How will this relationship benefit me? That is what we call an immature love, or more of a self-love. Because basically what you're doing with that self-love is, as long as I benefit, then I'm in love. That means as long as you're going to give me what I need to a certain level, then I love you. Self-love, the problem with that is very volatile. Because I love you because since I'm gaining something from it, you're giving me something. The moment I'm not getting something, I can stop loving you. That means, why do you love that individual? Whether you're attracted to that person's looks or their money or their job, or because of their quality, some type of quality, that means you're gaining something from that quality. And that you've been attracted to, and that's what you're feeling good about it. The moment you don't let that quality disappears, or you don't feel excited about it, that love may dissipate. That's immature, selfish love. Mature love, on the other hand, is focused on what the relationship gets from it. Not what I receive from it, but out of a respect, commitment. There's a glue that keeps the two together, the husband and wife together. And what is that glue? That glue is a critical ingredient to be able to have that love, that romance. And without the dedication and respect and commitment and passion that one has for another, then the love won't be there. The love changes from a me focused to a you focused. This is especially important when a relationship during turbulent times, the only way that it can actually continue and not be weaned by way I feel is only because we're both in it together. A relationship that each one gives 100% to each other. The same is true with our relationship with God. If we ask why love of God is insufficient, then we are thinking of an immature love. What does God give me? What am I gaining from God? What do I gain from having a relationship with God? And because sometimes I say, okay, now I'm excited about spirituality, I'm excited about that, and I'm feeling good about my relationship, okay, I love God. The moment I all of a sudden started going through a hard time, a pandemic hits, and I start asking questions and everything doesn't work out according to schedule, I start questioning my love because I'm not gaining anything from it. Therefore, what's required is respect, commitment, honor, which we can call fear of God. Not just love, but also fear. Maimonides puts it this way. Maimonides gives it a different word, and instead of calling it fear, he calls it awe. We're not talking about fear of punishment, but you see that God is awesome, God is great, God is wonderful. Maimonides describes it as something feeling when you perceive a vastness, you see a gorgeous horizon, you see something which is unbelievable that you cannot describe. You all of a sudden imagine yourself, what's going on? Where is it? How is it happening? You're in awe of the universe. You're in awe of the Creator. And what you're seeing, and you notice that you're only a blip on the radar. Why is awe needed? Because imagine you're in love with a person and you don't even know that that person won the Nobel Peace Prize or made a medication that saved thousands of lives. Are you really in love with that person? You know nothing about them. How can you be in love with a person that you know nothing about? Because when you're in love with a person that you know nothing about, it's because you're not in love with the person, you're in love with what that person gives you. Knowing the individual is step number one to being in love and in having a relationship. A person who truly experiences love also experiences awe, also understands and knows the power, the individual, their greatness, and because of that respects it, is committed to it, and is in awe of it. So while love is extremely important with our relationship with God, that love has to be grounded with what that relationship's all about. So love is what flourishes the relationship, but it's born out of awe. Same is true with our relationship with God. Our relationship with God comes from awe of God, but at the same time flourishes with love of God. And let's take it in a personal way. Let's think about a mitzvah. You think about the world that God created in its vast beauty. So many different millions and billions of atoms. And God tells the human being, and the Jew in particular, I need you to put on tefillin. I need you to give charity. I need you to go to shul. I need you to observe Shabbat. What is God saying? That even though he created this awesome universe with so many different things, but you matter. You make a difference. That instills within the individual an awesomeness and a love for God. Imagine, you're looking at an observatory and you see all these beautiful stars and galaxies, and you can't take your eyes off by what you're seeing. But as you focus more, you're not dreaming, but you see your name is written in the planets and in the galaxies. You're not only now in awe, but you're all of a sudden you feel like 1 second, me, this small little person, and my name is up there in the galaxies? This is exactly what the first Chabad Rebbe outlines for us and tells us exactly this is what God did. God, in the greatest of all universe, made the spiritual and the physical. He doesn't want us a fear that we're in trepidation, but he wants, or a fear that's going to cause us a paralysis. But when Moses was talking to the Jewish people and said, all God is asking of you is fear, what Moses was telling the Jewish people, realize that this awesome, monumental God who created heaven and earth also depends on you to do your mitzvah. It's a fear that comes from the realization of the greater purpose of what you're here in this world. It's not only about fear of punishment, that if I don't do it, what I'm going to get punished, I'm going to get smacked, who knows what's going to happen. On the contrary, it's the fear that God is depending on you to light that fire. Imagine the space shuttle, that's all the billions of dollars that they put into the capsule, and it's up to you to push the igniter and to make sure the space shuttle goes up to space. And if you miss it, boom, billions of dollars down the tube. That's exactly what God is depending on us. When he tells us to do a mitzvah, whether it's to light Shabbat candles, to put on tefillin, whatever mitzvah may be, or making this world a better place, what God is saying is, I created the universe. You got to push the trigger. I'm depending on you in this beautiful, massive universe. That's an awesome responsibility. That's a scary responsibility. That's the fear. That's the fear, the profound privilege that we have. The commitment, that knowing that God is standing over us lovingly, waiting to see, are we going to follow through? So to summarize of what we discussed today, love is crucial in our relationship with God, but our relationship has to be genuine, not something which is selfish. And therefore we have to acknowledge and realize the awe-inspiring transcendence that our relationship with God flourishes on love, but it must come out of reverence and fear. Number two, our awe is intensified when we contemplate that God is infinite, unfathomable God, desires our action, our doing, our one mitzvah. God's waiting for us to do it. So go ahead, my friends, and let's do it. Thank you for listening to Lunch Break with the Rabbi today. We'll join us again tomorrow for Lunch Break with the Rabbi at 1 p.m. Again, please feel free to send in your comments or questions so we can address them in further classes. All the best, God bless you, and have a wonderful day.